Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Justin Pauly. I'm the president of VX Technologies and our flagship product, VXPass. We've been in the BSV blockchain space for around a year now and have had global traction. And what we do is we put verified health records onto blockchain.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everyone. I'm Saeed Alhebsi, AI advisor in the Undersecretary Office in the Ministry of Human Resources and Emiratisation in Emirates. My responsible in the ministry as to enforce and to find the challenges where we can implement the, let's say, fourth industrial revolution of AI, blockchain, IoT, and big data. So this is my role in the ministries, and we are here to represent some of our use cases.
My name is Jorge Sebastiao. I am co-founder of GBO, which is the Global Blockchain Organization, which is an NGO that helps implement enterprises and government organizations for blockchain around the world, like, for example, CBDC as an example. Also co-founder of something called EcoX, stands for Ecosystem Connections, which we will soon bring to Riyadh, and we have been doing in Dubai for the last 4 years, Bahrain and Cyprus. It's a weekly ecosystem networking meeting where startups of both blockchain, AI, and other technologies are able to find the necessary resources they're looking for. And I also assist quite a few projects. One example, I'm a CBO within Simba Storage, which is a cold wallet technology for blockchain multi-signature, so you don't lose your keys or your passwords, and it's always recoverable. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Before we go into the panel discussion, we would like to invite Justin to do a quick presentation about the VXPass and how they are reshaping the healthcare records.
Thank you, Mohammed. Again, my name is Justin Pauly. I'm from VXPass, and I want to talk briefly, as I know everyone would love to get to lunch, about VXPass, what we're doing, how we do it, and why it is critical in our viewpoint and the viewpoint of many countries that we've been engaged with about how the future of health technology can empower both citizens and countries. What we produce at the core is a double digital signature verified health record. And what that means is essentially every record that we put on chain is not just a record that we have scraped from a database, but it has to be verified by a licensed person in that country. So it is always under the stewardship of a nation. However, that medical record is under the ownership of the patient, which allows them to travel, to go to universities, and to have safe environments inside of the nation. So if you're going to have meetings such as this in this hotel, we would be able to show that VXPass, and it is peer-to-peer verifiable, so that I can verify Mohammed, Mohammed can verify myself, and family at gatherings, border, wherever you need to have that verification. Now, obviously, we're starting with COVID-19. That is on the minds of most nations and many people around the world. A quick run-through of what our platform looks like. To the patient, it's quite simple. You do a new patient login, and we never, ever put personally identifiable information on chain. This is very, very critical, as we believe health information is the purview of the patient and the government only. We can research these records as they are pseudonymous on chain, so it is a tremendous value to international organizations such as the WHO, United Nations, internal universities, things like that, cooperatives that are working to beat and hopefully make the next pandemic, and we can keep it at an epidemic level. So we go through, it's quite easy. You have your new patient, and a lot of the people that we've spoken with don't actually know that all of this is happening on chain. And that's a wonderful way to sort of introduce millions of people into blockchain, but because we have a one-click, it creates your wallet, and your public and private key and sends it to you. And the provider side, it has to be done by, again, a verified professional under the stewardship of the nation. So as you license and credential doctors, medical professionals, pharmacists, things like that, who are able to give the vaccine, they would also equally be licensed with the permission of the state to issue VXPass. And that's where the provider comes in. And then once you go through the system, you have an easy check mark, and You have your QR code, and you are done. So the other option is what we call aftercare. Aftercare is simply where we check the current database, we're presented with an identification, and then someone from the Ministry of Health, Department of Health, can then move forward and issue the VXPass as well for those who have been fortunate enough to have been vaccinated. Interoperability and scalability are critical in our path forward as we try to change the world in terms of how we understand, deliver, and execute digital health transformation. And at the end, we need to always understand that trust, the accuracy, and the ownership are critical for healthcare moving forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Justin. And we definitely will come back to you on the questions relevant to the VXPass. And I now move on to Saeed. Saeed, you are representing one of the major ministries in UAE, and also that ministry is dealing with the HR data. Would like to ask you about the initiatives in your ministry and overall, what is the overall status in the UAE about blockchain implementation in the government and administrative issues?
Well, sure. In 2018, the government announced about the blockchain strategy, follow up with the Blockchain Council. This strategy built in 3 pillars: efficiency of the government. The second one is the creation of industrial, and third thing is international leadership in the blockchain. In these 3 layers, we can start with the efficiency government. Last year, our government announced 50% from their transaction. It's built on blockchain technologies. In the creation of the industrial, I have been read, I think PwC, they announced about the blockchain technology will contribute to the international economy by next decade $1.8 trillion. So it is very big opportunity as a government that we look at it and we put big investment on it. The third thing, as international leadership, last year also, we can announce as Dubai fully powered by blockchain technologies. And they have as Dubai itself also, they have their own blockchain center. They achieved many things last year, and they have one of the big events that blockchain conference. This is an overall of UAE. If we come back to our ministry, we need to follow this strategic and we need to put it an action plan. So everything will start with awareness, then with education, then the put in the qualified people to presenting and bring the good solution as the ministries. So in the beginning, we start to sign a partnership with the BSV Association to help for the awareness and education our ministries in part of the blockchain. So now we are coming to the next stage where coming to the, let's say, just I want to come back to one idea about our ministries. Our ministry is responsible about the labor in UAE and the companies also. 2 indications very important here to know it, because we will see how the blockchain can help us. The first one, there is more than 700,000 companies in UAE. There is more than 7 million labor and employees in the UAE. So these all big numbers are responsible by Ministry of HR. One of the application, which is what we want to use it and exploring in the next, it is smart contract, as we mentioned. The finance department also we can find with the invoicement. So this is some application can be related to the blockchain technologies.
We've been talking about the goody things of blockchain, but I'll ask you something relevant to the challenges of implementation of blockchain, especially with regards to the HR data and the personal data. We have heard that with the GDPR and HIPAA compliance, there are issues in implementation of the blockchain-powered data solutions. Would like your opinion on that. What's happening and how do you think these things will be manageable with the blockchain and data?
Yeah, in this section, there's actually 3 types of data that we're covering. One is obviously the HR data. The other one is the health data. And the third one is the personal data. When we look at these 3 elements, this is an important and interesting aspect of where blockchain provides a lot of power and usage. One is to look at blockchain as a new operating system. I usually call this a blockchain as an operating system of trust. And trust really means it's not just about having the information being valid, but also is about the user controlling who has access to what data. And the primary reason is because the data is signed by the keys of the user. So, and through the protection of the digital wallet, whether it happens to be a hot, warm, or cold wallet, the user will have the rights to determine what data is accessible by whom and how. And this has many important elements associated with data monetization. So on one side, we have the technology, which is the technology of trust and blockchain. On the other side, we have the regulations. And the regulations obviously have been evolving for some time. From the United States, we had HIPAA. Being from a cybersecurity background for the last 22 years, Health Information Protection Act really drive how the importance of privacy of healthcare records. So you can say that blockchain and healthcare are married to go together in an extremely important way, and they service each other in a very valuable way. Although HIPAA is a US regulatory standard, organizations that service here and the Middle East, Saudi, and other countries have to also comply with HIPAA because some of these, for example, our Saudi Aramco hospital is actually a US-based hospital. So that means they have to comply with HIPAA as well. If we look more closely at Europe, we have the GDPR, which is General Data Protection Rules. And it's probably today the most advanced privacy law in the world. And it has kind of set the standard that later even the US is trying to adopt some elements. The Middle East is also trying to see the key elements. GDPR, although it's in direct connection with blockchain in terms of the protection and the control of data, there's some elements of GDPR that go a little bit against blockchain. And I can give you one example. One of the things that exists in GDPR is something called the right to be forgotten. Right to be forgotten means you as a user has the right to say, please don't keep data about me. Blockchain is actually the opposite, saying data is kept forever and you cannot actually erase any data. So the two kind of go a little bit hand in hand, but there is practical solutions to create hiding that information, which means it's still there, but you can actually not view that information. And again, you're doing this through cybersecurity digital signatures. More closely to the Middle East, if we look specifically at Dubai, we have an open data law that got introduced somewhere between 2 to 3 years ago. And the idea was that if you go to US or Canada, the census produces data that business can use and analyze to do business plans and all that. This data is not available in the Middle East or very seldom available, and it's not available definitely in places like Africa. So if businesses want to do proper and accurate business plans, you need to have some data. So this open data law really was trying to force governments and businesses not to show up all their data, but to show the data that is useful for people to make statistics and business decisions. We have the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that is now also looking at adopting some of these elements of the open data law and even make it even better. I had discussions over the last 2 or 3 days about this. So again, blockchain plays an important role in the direct implementation of these laws through a technology of trust. So the two go hand in hand as almost like a symbiotic or helpful relationship to each other. So this is my take on this topic today.
Thank you very much. It was very insightful. And now we come back to Justin. We've been hearing a lot about the use cases. I think now is the time for the world to experience blockchain through applications, and one of the very powerful application is this VXPass. Tell us more about the implementation status at the moment. How many countries have been starting using it? What's in the roadmap? So we can also see where the benefits will be for the healthcare.
Currently, VXPass is in the implementation process in 2 nations, the United States and Lesotho. We are in talks at varying levels with 28 other countries to bring our grand total to 30 countries as of this morning. So we're really, it's not a future problem, it's today's solution for VXPass. And I think that is a critical component, that this is not a theory, we are not having proof of concept, we are full implementing our product. for that to happen within within a year of our starting our company and be solely on blockchain. We do not hatch anything off. Everything is on BSV blockchain. And so we are very excited to be the tip of the spear globally for some places that don't have access in terms of education and things like that to BSV currently, and we're going to be implementing in those places.
There is a new authority in Ministry of HR and Emiratisation that is named as NAFIZ. It's again the initiative to promote the Emiratisation in UAE. And tell us, where do you see the application for blockchain in NAFIZ and how we can see that it will benefit the HR in UAE?
Actually, NAFIZ is an official program for the talent Emirati. It is a multiple collaboration between stakeholders, private and public sector. This is the program that can be help to enforce and support the local Emiratisation in the private sector. And we ask them and we help them, train them to support the economy for in terms of the private sector. Where we can benefit from blockchain technologies, as NAFIZ is very new now, that we can look for all and build all the data of NAFIZ and local, especially I'm talking about the local Emirati and the companies in blockchain technologies. Because what we face always we have about job seeker data, but every year, not every year, even maybe every month it should be updated. So we are imagining if we build it in blockchain technologies that we building a blockchain that cannot be changed and very accurate and very clean data that we can build policies and decision from it. On the other hand, also as a companies, today we have, as I mentioned earlier, that there are more than 700,000 companies. Let's say most of them they build on the normal cloud, as we mentioned. But if we also enter the blockchain technology hills, we can control also the data from there, and we make sure everything what we are clean, and we can build on it as a decision maker.
Right. Over to you now, George. And if we talk about data, personal data, we should talk about also SSI, self-sovereign identity. Is it a hype only, and do we see any implementation, if not now, in future?
Definitely blockchain as an important element associated with implementing personal identity. One of the key elements I find extremely important, especially the integration with, for example, biometric technology, whether that biometric technology could be face, fingerprint, iris, or any of the elements, or even what we call sometimes multimodal biometrics, which combines several of the biometrics together. Actually, we have a very interesting project that was done in UAE. As you know, when you have tourists, they arrive in Dubai, they go party, sometimes they forget where they are. And for a percentage of these tourists, for example, the passports get lost. As you know, when you go through the 3 generations of smart gate, the first one was with the finger, the second one was with the iris, then the third one, you don't have to take even anything out of your pocket, you just walk. But the important thing is that that information is actually being stored on the blockchain alongside with the passport information, creating an interlock. So if you, as a tourist to the UAE, lose your passport, you're able to actually recover your identity in 2 or 3 hours. I don't know if many of you have lost your passport when you've been on vacation. It's a several-week nightmare to get back on track because you have to find an embassy that will reissue your passport, then you have to put the visas back on the passport, then you can travel. So here, UAE allows you to actually leave the country within 3 hours or so, which means you can take back your flight. But now, of course, you need the PCR test and everything else that goes along with it, so it's not as easy as it used to be before. But I do believe that identity management and blockchain go hand in hand together. So it's a technology, in this case, of trust, but trust of the personal identity. But I believe that on the topics that we have here, there's one that I wanted to also cover that I think is extremely important, is in the one associated with human resources and the critical aspect of some jobs that you do. For example, let's say you're a doctor and you have a PhD and you do operations, or you're a pilot and you actually fly an airplane. You want to make sure that this guy has got the right degrees and the right certifications. And this is one of the perfect applications for blockchain. So you can actually verify today on the blockchain if that degree or that certification for a specific task, especially a task that leads to potential loss of life, is extremely important. So you'll be able to verify if that certification is really indeed true. As you know, being here in the kingdom for the last 25 years, there's people that sometimes impersonate, without mentioning nationalities, being a doctor, but in reality the guy got it from some kind of photocopy machine. But that really means that this is very dangerous. The guy is prescribing life-threatening remedies to somebody that will not benefit from the results.
Right. So we have now one last question for each of the panelists, and would appreciate if a quick answer from you guys. Justin, we start with you. You've been doing the vaccination records on blockchain. I would like to ask you some other use cases for putting the healthcare data and records on blockchain, and do you see any other project which you believe that will be a disruptive?
Yes, I'll start with the second one first. The credentialing that we just spoke of is we have to credential the doctors through our platform, the nation state does, and obviously that credentialing can be copied and pasted across many, many different avenues. Now, for the future of vaccination records and medical records is, I think, very critical to have a standardization that we use at VXPass for artificial intelligence, for larger research programs, to have uniform, verified data on-chain that is immutable. AI is wonderful, but if you feed it not so great data, you're going to get not so great results.
George, yes, there is a drive for putting the data, personal data, healthcare data, and all kinds of data on blockchain. When do we see actually all of the data been, especially the critical one, on chain, rather than like just now it's more a pilot phase? When do you see it's going to be production grade?
Well, actually, the point that was brought previously, data by itself is not the end result, is what you do with the data. And today, the most important application that uses data is artificial intelligence. So, and I do believe that all the technologies, whether it happens to be blockchain, AI, robotics, IoT, by themselves, they have very limited applicability. Is today, the important aspect is once you start combining these technologies together. So if we talk about something like, for example, a conscientious or a smart city, you have all these elements coming together under one umbrella. So on one side, you have the identity of the citizen, you have the healthcare records, and what this allows you to do is to control how the data gets access to the AI. You can also obfuscate elements of the data, which means that if I'm a user, maybe I only want part of that data to be visible to the AI, the one that is not personally identifiable. So it allows you to still train the AI so you get the proper results, but at the same time, I maintain my privacy. So I do believe the elements in which we integrate these solutions together, it's the best way forward to get traction. So I think if you're, for example, an organization like BSV, what is really critical to you today? Get the most use cases. The most traction you have, the more success you'll have in the future.
Great, get the most use cases. Last but not the least, Saeed. Yes, there was a collaboration between the Central Bank of UAE and KSA few years back to run a project, our pilot, for the interchanging of our exchange of the cash flow. Now, when can we see the Ministry of HR in UAE collaborating with Ministry here for the HR and functionality, doing the common use cases on blockchain? Because again, the blockchain has a network effect benefit. So when and how you see that happening?
Actually, in the beginning, between Emirates and Saudi, they have multiple collaboration and many things in the higher level from since a long time back. But everything to start with data. Whatever data we can share together, much uses case we can build on it. For example, for the labor, for the new Emiratisation in Saudi, Sauda, they call their program for the localization, the people. From the companies itself also, all of this start with data. As much as we can share the data and we put it in the blockchain technologies, then we can make 100 of use cases that would support each other economics.
Looking forward for that collaboration between KSA and Emirates. And with that, I'll end that someone asked me how we can enter in the space of blockchain. This is something how I got into the blockchain. I'm having a background of learning and performance management or human resource. So that's how 5 years back I started learning about blockchain, its use cases in this functionality. So I would recommend any of who is willing to explore more about blockchain, explore the use cases or applications of blockchain in your space, in your functionality, in your vertical. Leave the tech for the techies. Just explore the use cases and you'll find a benefit of the blockchain. Thank you very much.